ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकयां चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहित कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान सहगण ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुस्तुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Today we are reading from Canto 1, Chapter 9, The Passing Away of Bhishmadev, Text 48. Tatho yudhishthiro gatva saha Krishno गजाव्यहं पितरं शांतव्यम असा गांधारीं च तपस्विनीं. Translation. Therefore, Maharaja Yudhishthira at once went to his capital Hastinapura, accompanied by Lord Shri Krishna, and there he consoled his uncle and aunt Gandhari, who was an ascetic. Purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, the father and mother of Duryodhana and his brothers, were the elder uncle and aunt of Maharaja Yudhishthira. After the battle of Kurukshetra, the celebrated couple, having lost all their sons and grandsons, were under the care of Maharaja Yudhishthira. They were passing their days in great agony over such a heavy loss of life, and were practically living the life of ascetics. The death news of Bhishmadev, uncle of Dhritarashtra, was another great shock for the king and the queen, and therefore they required solace from Maharaja Yudhishthira. Maharaja Yudhishthira was conscious of his duty and at once hurried to the spot with Lord Krishna and satisfied the bereaved Dhritarashtra with kind words from both himself and the Lord also. Gandhari was a powerful ascetic. Although she was living the life of a faithful wife and a kind mother, it is said that Gandhari also voluntarily closed her eyes because of the blindness of her husband. A wife's duty is to follow the husband 100%. And Gandhari was so true to her husband that she followed him even in his perpetual blindness. Therefore, in her actions, she was a great ascetic. Besides that, the shock she suffered because of the wholesale killing of her 100 sons and grandsons also was certainly too much for a woman. But she suffered all this like an ascetic. Gandhari, although a woman, is no less than Bhishmadev in character. They are both remarkable personalities in Mahabharata. So, I was, Hare Krishna, dear devotees, dear Vaishnavas, please bless me so I can speak, and please forgive me if I make any mistakes. So, I was trying to research and find out what I can speak or repeat that already other Vaishnavas or Acharyas have spoken. I came across Prabhupada's class on the very same verse. In that, Prabhupada glorifies Gandhari as Gandhari cha tapasvinim. Gandhari, the wife of Dhritarashtra, she is qualified as tapasvinim. She was a householder wife. She had 100 children. She is being addressed as tapasvinim, means one who undergoes austerities, because this human life is meant for practicing austerities. These are Prabhupada's words. And I was thinking about it. There is an example in Nectar of Instructions where the frogs are croaking. They keep on croaking, and what happens is it invites the snake. The snake comes and devours the frog. So croaking invites death. Similarly, we have a tongue and we keep talking and talking, and thereby we invite death. Instead, if we chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and we speak Krishna Katha all the time and make it our business to do Sankirtana, this is called tapasya in this age of Kali. Tapasya means I have got some tendencies and I voluntarily chuck these tendencies and give them up. This is called control or tapasya. My own tendency is to eat. And what I have to do is to say no for my eating and eat only Krishna Prasad. This is going to be tapasya if I succeed in it. What is the purpose of tapasya? We should not do tapasya for temporary gain or even material gain. Tapasya should be done for God realization. For example, Hiranyakashipu did a lot of tapasya and he got his Vajrakaya. He wanted to rule the entire universe. However, he was defeated by the Lord. In the purport, Prabhupada compares Gandhari to Bhishma. And it's very interesting to see Gandhari's character. So I was looking to see if there was any senior Vaishnava or Guru who had spoken about Gandhari. And luckily I came across His Grace Gauranga Prabhu, who gave a talk in 2018 on the character of Gandhari. And that talk was titled Misuse of Dharmic Life. Very interesting to start with. So, Gandhari was the daughter of Subala, who is of the Yadu clan. She was a staunch devotee of Lord Shiva. She was very beautiful and a very capable woman. Bhishma learns about Gandhari and he thinks she is the right bride for Prince Dhritarashtra. So he sends for a marriage alliance. Gandhari's father is very pleased and he accepts the alliance because the Kuru dynasty and the Kuru kings are very powerful. And he's very eager. Gandhari agrees with her father even without finding out the full details as a dutiful daughter. Here the comparison is made with Rukmini Devi. When Rukmini Devi is promised to Shishupala by her brother, Rukmini Devi realizes that she has to do something. She has to take 100% responsibility of her life. She writes the first dharmic love letter to Krishna. Krishna accepts and comes and rescues her. Coming back to Gandhari, Gandhari learns that Dhritarashtra is blind, and Gandhari is still in her parental home. She vows to blindfold her eyes for her entire life. This one vow of hers can be compared to Bhishma's vow or pratigna not to marry and not to desire the kingdom. Gandhari does not consider marriage as a relationship with love, satisfaction, and happiness. Because if she had considered that, she may have taken a different decision. And if she was not blindfolded, then their children would have had a parent who could have taken care of them. Whereas because she was blindfolded and Dhritarashtra was blind, the Kaurava princes were all taken care of by servants and Shakuni. So one may ask the question, for whose benefit was her vow? Now going back to Gandhari, Gandhari was an expert in economics. So was Shakuni. Gandhari was blessed by Shiva that she will have 100 sons. She marries and she comes to live with Dhritarashtra. Gandhari stands tall because she is a chaste woman and follows the dharmic principles with determination. She builds a grand house of dharma. But Gandhari is unfortunately surrounded by Dhritarashtra, Shakuni, 100 sons, all of them exactly like Duryodhana. The entire atmosphere is negative. It's not conducive for devotional service. So the walls of this dharmic house Gandhari built was very porous and it could crumble any time. One question comes to mind and it stands out. What did Gandhari do with the fruits of her tapasya? At this point of time, the story of Vajrakaya comes to my mind. So after all the battle is done, Duryodhana and Bhima are supposed to be fighting each other. That night, Gandhari asks Duryodhana that he should come the next day morning in front of her, totally naked. Next day, Duryodhana dutifully goes to Gandhari and he's walking towards Gandhari's chambers, totally naked. Lord Krishna sees Duryodhana and says, Duryodhana, where are you going? Totally naked. Duryodhana tells him that he's going to meet his mother. And Krishna tells Duryodhana, hey Duryodhana, this is not proper to see your mother without covering below your waist. Duryodhana thinks Krishna is correct, and so he covers his body below the waist and goes to see his mother. Gandhari, because of her ascetic powers, because of her asceticism, has gathered so much power. She removes her blindfold and she bathes her son with the rays of the tapasya from her eyes. And as she starts looking down, his body starts solidifying like iron. Then she sees the cloth on the lower part of Duryodhana's body and she cries out, "Alas, Duryodhana! Alas, what have you done? Why did you cover yourself?" And Duryodhana says, "I met Krishna on the way and Krishna asked me to cover and I thought it is proper to do that." Gandhari just gives a smile and she realizes Krishna has seen through and so she cannot win. Now, it is very interesting that this Vajrakaya story is not part of Vyasa Mahadev's Mahabharata. It may be in one of the Puranas, but this story is not in Vyasa Mahabharata. This story actually uh, is contrary to the dharmic practice that Gandhari was doing. In fact, whenever Duryodhana went to Gandhari seeking her blessings, Gandhari not once blesses Duryodhana that he will be victorious. Gandhari will always say, "I am so helpless." Because wherever the dharma is, that is where victory is going to be. Yatho dharma, tato jaya. Yatho Krishna, tato dharma. So Krishna is with Pandavas and dharma is also with Pandavas. So Gandhari never blesses her son that he will be victorious against Pandavas. Gandhari is the sole voice of reason and saneness in the royal family. She never supports her husband Dhritarashtra for his misdeeds. After Draupadi's disrobing, Gandhari talks to Dhritarashtra and she says, "At the time of birth, Vidura had asked us to discard this evil son Duryodhana and we did not do it because of Putra Moha. Dhritarashtra, now is the time you have to disown Duryodhana. Otherwise, the entire Kuru clan will be destroyed and will go to hell." This is the boldness that Gandhari had that even Bhishma and Drona did not have. However, Dhritarashtra cries and he says, "I am helpless. I cannot abandon my son or the fruits of the gambling match. Even if the entire Kuru dynasty is destroyed and it goes to hell." Then Gandhari guarantees to Dhritarashtra that all their 100 sons will be killed. And she further goes on to say that neither Bhishma or Drona will be able to fight to their fullest abilities. It is really a misfortune that Gandhari had such a husband and toxic children. However, on Gandhari's part, not once does he reject Shakuni and sends him back. Because if Shakuni had been rejected by her, Duryodhana and the 100 princes would have not come under such evil association. When Gandhari first sees Draupadi, she sees death personified in Draupadi for her 100 sons. Gandhari makes only 2 mistakes, and these 2 mistakes consume the entire fruits of her tapasya. Gandhari hears that Kunti Devi has given birth to Yudhishthira. Gandhari by now has been carrying for 2 years. And it is natural for any woman to get envious. She got, Gandhari was so envious that she strikes her belly with her hand and cries. This may look like a physical act to us, but it was much more. It is the conscience in which she struck the belly with her hand. She seeded and transferred the envy in her heart to the 100 embryos in her womb. And so Duryodhana and the 99 brothers inherited the same seed of envy that she had carried for Yudhishthira. One small mistake that Gandhari did, she had a lifetime of regret. The second mistake that Gandhari does is when she curses Krishna in the battlefield. What happens after the battle is, because this was a dharmic battle, Krishna and the Pandavas, they go back to Hastinapur and they console Dhritarashtra and they console Gandhari. Gandhari is very, very angry and she's ready to curse the Pandavas. However, Vyasadeva realizes Gandhari is going to curse the Pandavas and he appears before Gandhari and he explains to Gandhari, hey Gandhari, when you blessed Yudhishthira every single time, you never blessed him to be victorious. You always said Dharma is with Pandavas, so victory is going to be with Pandavas. You always said Krishna is with Pandavas, so Dharma is also with Pandavas. So it is not the fault of Pandavas. And Gandhari controls her anger. Then when she sees Bhima, she asks Bhima, Bhima, why did you kill Duryodhana? Bhima is very skillful in talking. So what Bhima says is, Duryodhana was very strong and he's undefeatable. He's very skillful and dexterous. There was no way I could have defeated Duryodhana. So I had to do what I had to do. And Gandhari, even in the plight, is pleased that Bhima is glorifying Duryodhana. And so she forgives Bhima and she looks at Yudhishthira. When she is facing Yudhishthira, the anger in her burns the toenails of Yudhishthira. Yudhishthira Maharaj realizes how angry Gandhari is and how much she may be grieving. So he falls at her feet and says, I take 100% responsibility of what has happened. You can do whatever you want with me. And when somebody surrenders like that, how can Gandhari curse him? So she doesn't curse Yudhishthira also. And at this point of time, Arjuna is hiding behind Krishna, fearing he is going to be the next. However, Gandhari at this point of time expresses to Vyasa Mahadev saying, I want to see the battlefield. Vyasadeva takes her to the battlefield, and because the difference between Dhritarashtra and Gandhari is Dhritarashtra is born blind, so he knows he cannot see. But Gandhari has forcefully closed her eyes, she blindfolded her eyes, so she has the ability to uncover it when she wants it. So she uncovers her eyes and she starts looking at the battlefield. she sees the various dead bodies of her children. The head is dislocated. Jackals and vultures are feasting on them. She feels that all the five elements, the earth, ether, water, space, all of them have mingled together and become a big mass. She turns to Krishna in agony and in anger, and she asks Krishna, Krishna, why did you let this happen? It was in your power and you could have stopped this. And Gandhari doesn't wait for 1 second to Krishna to respond to it. She curses Krishna and tells him that 36 years from now, Krishna, all your sons and all your descendants, the entire Yadu Kula, will kill each other and they will die. And you will suffer exactly like how I am suffering right now. And you will die in a lonely place with no relatives of yours surrounding you. Krishna smiles, and in return, what Krishna says is, just like a Brahmin wants a son who is a tapasvi, a cow gives birth to a bull for pulling weight, Vaishyas progenate for cow protection, and Shudras aspire hardworking children. You may have given birth to children to die and killed. Here we can contrast Gandhari's behavior with Draupadi's behavior. After Vastrapaharan, Draupadi cries and asks Krishna, hey Krishna, if you had come a little earlier, I need not have gone through all this pain. Why did you not come early? And she doesn't curse Krishna. And Krishna, for his part, he cries with Draupadi and he says he regrets that he was not able to come earlier. And Krishna keeps this regret all his life. And in fact, he expresses before he leaves this earthly pastime that one of his regrets was that he did not come early to help Draupadi. There is a loving exchange between Draupadi and Krishna, whereas there was no loving exchange between Gandhari and Krishna, because Gandhari was more religious than being devotional. So at the end, Gandhari cries, she weeps. Krishna is okay with this curse. He takes it because he's satisfied that Yudhishthira, the future king of the entire universe, is safe from the wrath of Gandhari, and the Pandavas will not be cursed by her again, because all her ascetic powers has been wasted in these two episodes. So Gandhari's practice of dharma was like that of a balloon, where as she practiced it, the balloon grew bigger and bigger, and with these two instances, the balloon burst. Similarly, our devotional service should not be like a balloon which will go burst at some time. Later, Gandhari realizes when Vidura comes and convinces Dhritarashtra, Gandhari, and Kunti to leave the royal palace, she leaves the royal palace with them and goes to the forest. She perfects her life, and she leaves the body. My realization when I read about Gandhari and tried to understand the character is This was in Dwapara Yuga, and she had great personalities like Krishna and others on her side. Whereas here in Kali Yuga, we don't have anything like that. It is so much more difficult if we don't practice tapasya. And if we don't do tapasya in love and in devotion of Lord Sri Krishna, then we will also build houses of dharma which are having walls which are porous and they can crumble at any point of time. I think I went over the time. Please forgive me. And if you have any questions or clarifications, please you can, or even discussions, please you can bring it up. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please ask my humble obeisance. This is Bhakti Priya. Wonderful, wonderful class, Prabhuji. I always wanted to read about Gandhari, and I never, took time. But today you fulfilled my desire. Like I want, I was hearing so attentively, like all the, whole history of Gandhari and how she, and did so many
Yeah.
and the lessons were really eye opening. Many times we come from different background and do our sadhana in a very in a pious way, but not really in a devotional way. There is a difference there, and adding that devotion was so important. And I think that is what I'm taking with me today from the class. Like, the devotion has to be there, and not just piousness, not just following the principles and all, but just have that love and, full with heart, and, have feelings for, Krishna and devotees. And, those are the important behaviors we have to develop. And so thank you very much, Prabhuji, for today's class. It was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mataji. So,
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. All
Hare
glory,
Krishna, Mataji, please
all,
accept
all glories to Guru Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. Very wonderful class, Prabhu. I wish to join Bhakti Priya in saying, I also wish to hear the topic of Gandhari very much, and you have really given a very nice class, and I'm happy to have been there. Then my question is, Prabhu, so Krishna being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, how can he be cursed by some, and that's what one thought that came to my mind. Anyway, Krishna protected the Pandavas from Gandhari's curse very nicely, and he controlled the flow of events very very thing. But I'm surprised that Krishna could also be cursed. By Gandhari.
Yeah, Mataji. I was, Krishna is enigmatic and it's very difficult to understand Krishna. It's not that I know how to answer this. I really don't know the answer. But when I listened to this lecture by Gauranga Prabhu, he mentions that, Krishna says, or he thinks, I really don't needed, at the end of this pastime, I need to wind up the entire, setup that I have made here. But I needed a reason for that. And Gandhari is giving that reason to me. And that is what I heard. I don't know if this is right, wrong, but I just wanted to share that with you, Mataji.
That sounds right. Thank you very much. He just needed a reason. Thank you.
Yeah. And I wanted to share one thought, which even Bhakti Priya Mataji pointed out, that practicing devotion by religiosity versus doing it with love. There was one incident a few years ago. My Guru Maharaj Romapada Swami Maharaj's Vyasa Puja was happening in Kishore Kishori. So me, my wife, and the two kids, we were driving towards Kishore Kishori. But just as soon as we got out of our subdivision, uh, there was this father with two young children on his bicycle, and he fell down. I could have very easily got out of my vehicle and helped them. And in fact, Chandramukhi asked me to do the same, but I disregarded her advice, and I said, we are getting late for Guru Maharaj's Vyasa Puja. We should go there in time. And so what I did was, I forgot the Vaishnava principle of compassion, and I picked up religiosity over compassion. And I regret that act till this date. So,
Prabhu, thank you for sharing that. That's a very important point for us all to realize. And thank you very much. It is a very profound talk yours today. Thank you.
thank you, Mataji. It's all Krishna's mercy, Prabhupada's mercy, Prabhupada's disciples' mercy.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. And
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
I have another question. Can I ask another question?
yeah, Mataji. Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. You said that Krishna regretted not going to Draupadi in time to save her from the Vastraharan.
Yeah, Mataji.
How Krishna being God, how can he make a mistake and have regrets? That kind of sounds very human, right? And I had heard another story in which they said that Krishna told Draupadi, I was waiting to be called. As soon as you called, I came. You didn't call me earlier. If you had called me earlier, I would have come earlier.
Yeah, Mataji.
So which is the correct thing? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, Mataji. Go ahead, Mataji.
Because I feel if the story where they say that he says that if you had called me earlier, I would have come earlier. That sounds more realistic than Krishna having regrets. Krishna having regrets somehow doesn't. So that's my question.
Yeah, Mataji. I think your question is very correct. Vyasa Mahabharat talks, there is a narration that Vyasa Maharaj gives, and there are all these Puranas and all the other, rewritten or retold stories of Mahabharata where different aspects of Krishna are highlighted. But that is, like I said earlier, Krishna is enigmatic, he's mysterious. He wants to exchange love like, like a person. And again, I don't think I know the answer for this, but this is Vyasa's narration, and I'm just sticking to that. So I don't know which one is correct or which one is wrong, Mataji.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yes,
Hare
Prabhuji. Hare
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisance. Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for the very wonderful lecture, Prabhuji. It was very nectarian. So one quick comment and then a question, more of a contemplation. I'm hoping you could share some in that regard. The first comment is, you remember when you shared that thing about, not being able to help someone when somebody fell off a bike. I had a very, very similar experience. I could correlate to what you were saying. And I heard, and the comment is about, I heard some profound statement once I heard, in Vaishnava dealings, it is more important to put relationships ahead of projects, because often we think, we're doing something for Krishna, it's important for the temple, it's important for something, and then a project becomes very important.
Yes.
But sometimes in that regard, we forget relationships with devotees. So the comment I heard was, it's important to put relationships ahead of projects. Yes, Prabhuji. So my next question, Prabhuji, very much in the same lines. We see, for example, if you take the pastime of Gandhari, like how you explained, and not pastime, the whole incident of Gandhari. Now, when we look at Bhishma Dev, they both seem to be on the same side for their choices that they made.
Correct.
But Bhishma Dev is being glorified, as a great devotee and whatnot. But Gandhari is being criticized, right? Because in case of Bhishma Dev, we are saying it is a pastime of the Lord, it is by the will of the Lord and whatnot. And then next on Gandhari's side, we are saying, it was her choice and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
So in those lines, and not necessarily questioning the realizations of acharyas, but more like when we put ourselves in a situation where we have to make decisions, sometimes we lean towards, it is Krishna's will, whatever happens, let me do this, right? How do we differentiate our actions if we are acting like Gandhari versus Bhishma Dev?
Yeah. Yeah, Prabhuji. I don't know if I can answer the full question, but I'll take the first part. Bhishma Dev is being glorified and Gandhari is being criticized. Prabhuji, when I started listening to this Gauranga Prabhu's lecture, the first thing that Gauranga Prabhu mentions was there were 5 intentions of Vyasa Dev to write the Mahabharata, and one of the 5 was to glorify Gandhari and her tapasya. And the second thing I wanted to, from my own understanding, we had this almost 46 verses of glorifying of Bhishma Dev. But if you look at it, there were instances where Bhishma was also criticized for, inactions that he did not take. For example, he could have very easily stopped the Draupadi Vastrapaharan. He could have very easily stopped the game of dice. There were so many other instances where, Satyavati comes to Bhishma and says, the biggest regret in my life is that I had such a big ambition that me and my sons will rule this kingdom, and now it doesn't have a heir. You please get married again. So there are multiple instances in Bhishma's life where he is criticized also, but in the end he rises above all of them. The same thing happens with Gandhari. There are multiple instances where she is compared and she is criticized, but ultimately, again, because this is part of Srimad Bhagavatam, she is, we are being portrayed what the weaknesses are and how we can rectify it, like how ultimately Gandhari rectified her mistakes. Prabhupada actually says that Gandhari perfected her life and she left the body. We can also compare, with Kunti Devi, because that is one of the comparisons that was given. When Kunti Devi gave birth, or when she had Karna, she actually disowns Karna and sends him away in a small basket. And she regrets her entire life for having done that. On the battlefield, when Pandavas are, doing Antya-samskara for all the fallen warriors, Kunti Devi points to Karna's body and says to Yudhishthira, Yudhishthira, you have to perform last rites to Karna also. So Yudhishthira says, Mother, do you really want me to do this? And Bhima becomes a little agitated. However, Krishna stops by and tells Kunti, at least now, Kunti Devi, you need to tell the truth. And Yudhishthira asks Kunti Devi, Mother, what is it that Krishna said? No, he asked Krishna, Krishna, what did you tell? And Krishna says, I asked her to speak the truth. And Kunti Devi then, with a heavy heart, tells them who Karna is. Yudhishthira falls down. He faints. Bhima faints. And even Arjuna also faints. Then they all get up. And Yudhishthira says, Mother, whenever I saw Karna's feet, somehow I felt like a son seeing his mother's face. And now I understand why I was getting that feeling. However, you kept this secret from me all your lifetime. And Yudhishthira, who never got angry, he gets angry only twice. And this was one occasion where he gets so angry, he just doesn't curse Kunti Devi, he cursed the entire female uh, species, saying that the female species will never be able to keep a secret. The other instance is when Yudhishthira gets angry with Arjuna, and I don't know what that incident is. So, yeah, even the other characters in Mahabharata are glorified as well as criticized for their faults. So, I don't know if I answered the first part of the question properly, Prabhuji. And the second part, honestly, I will let somebody else to comment on it. I don't know how to answer that, Prabhuji.
No, Prabhuji, I think you beautifully put it, Prabhuji. I think that was amazing. I think you answered both the parts. My biggest takeaway was, I think, to see that everybody has pits and falls, but raising from it. I think the point you made at one point, in the end of the day, Bhishma raised above it, right, and taking shelter of Krishna in the end. Yeah. I think that was very beautifully put, Prabhuji. And I think the second part I felt it was answered too is because we should understand, yes, it's inevitable that sometimes we make wrong decisions, but the key thing is how do we raise up above from that. Thank you, Prabhuji. Very beautifully put. Thank you for taking that extra time to explain the Kunti's pastime, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you for giving me the opportunity, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Sorry, I know it's too late. I just want to share my thoughts on the two questions raised. I mean, when I was contemplating, my feeling is like, why Gandhari cursed Krishna and Krishna did not react. So I was remembering that verse, Daivam mantradhinam, mantram brahmanadhinam, aham brahmanadhinam. That's what Krishna says. So Krishna is bound to mantra. So why did Gandhari use that mantra? Curse is nothing but a mantra, right?
Yes.
So when you do austerities, Gandhari did so many austerities by closing her eyes. So, and also she is a very chaste woman. Because of that, we know from the scriptures, a woman is very chaste and do austerities. She gets powers like how a tapasvi gets. So she had the power to curse anybody. But the difference there is, it is like using that power for wrong purpose.
Yeah.
She used that power to curse the Supreme Lord. The beautiful thing there is, Krishna doesn't react there. That is the greatness of the Supreme Lord. It is not the greatness of the curse. The greatness of the Supreme Lord is he doesn't react to that. Like how Bhrigu hits Lord Vishnu, he doesn't react. You never see anywhere Krishna cursing somebody. Krishna takes away the lives of the people, but he never curses. So in that sense, Gandhari may be great, austeric person, chaste, but she used it in the wrong place. That is the difference between a devotee versus a person who is not a consciousness of the Lord. People like me do so many austerities. We try to do this and that, but when the time comes, we lose the temper. So I see there the Gandhari's position there. She may be great, but in contrast, Bhishma never curses anybody, even though he could.
Yes.
He controls his own anger, whatever it is, situation also. So I was thinking like that, Prabhuji, maybe speculating here. I felt more convinced by thinking like that. I may be wrong, I don't know.
No, Prabhuji, I think you actually put it right. Very well explained. I actually missed that part. When Gandhari curses Krishna, Krishna could have cursed back Gandhari, saying, in your next life you'll have 200 children and all the 200 children will be burnt and stuff like that. But yeah, you're right. Krishna doesn't retaliate like that. He's a loving person, he accepts the faults, and even though he had nothing to do with all of this, he still accepts what Gandhari gave him with a
Yeah.
smile.
Yeah. See, yes, thank you, Prabhu. The other one is I was thinking that, why Krishna was repenting that he could not help Draupadi. Similar lines, I was thinking that, the Supreme Lord is eager to help us, very
Yeah.
eager to help us. But the problem is we don't call it out. We don't call out. So the regret Krishna has there is, why did not this devotee call me? Why did not surrender to me so I can protect?
Yes.
So I think that could be the feeling of Krishna for repentance, that, being a devotee of the Lord, she forgot at the important time. So
Yeah.
that's maybe the reason Krishna was, one of those repentance, like, why my devotee did not call out for me.
Good, Prabhu.
So those
Actually,
two things.
yeah, Prabhuji, you actually pointed out a very beautiful point, Prabhuji. What I think there are no two versions. After what you said, I realized there may be no two versions here. Because Krishna could have very easily said, Draupadi, you could have called me earlier. But he didn't want to blame Draupadi because it's a loving relationship. So
Yep.
instead of blaming Draupadi, he's saying, I could have come earlier, but he was bound not to come earlier because Draupadi did not call him. I think the two versions are not really two versions.
Yeah. So that also reminds that, even though however pure we are, when we don't call out for Supreme Lord, he is not obligated to come for us. So his protection is not that, it's not just one way. Even though we call out, doesn't mean that he has to protect us. He is independent Virat, but he doesn't take that chance. When you call out, he will run for us. The only thing is the call out.
Yeah, Prabhuji.
So those two, I was thinking.
So
Prabhuji.
wonderful. So wonderful, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, if I can ask one more question, I know it's over time.
Sure, Prabhuji. Sure,
So,
Prabhuji.
in the same lines, when we say call out, right?
Yes.
My question is, sometimes we say if some difficulty comes to us, we say, whatever Krishna's wish. When we say that, does it mean we are not calling out for Krishna?
Is that Radha, Kunjabihari, go ahead. You are facilitating.
Panduranga Prabhu.
I cannot answer Mohan Prabhu's questions. It's very tough. So these are my speculative thoughts, Prabhuji. I am not perfect, but what I was thinking is, when a devotee says is out of Krishna's mercy, that is humility in one sense. The person who doesn't have humility is blaming. Because I'm not able to do it, I just going to put on God. It's easy because you cannot see, you cannot easily show up, right? So it's easy to blame. Oh, it's whatever the wish of, because you did not put enough endeavor, that in your heart, you just call it out. The other way around is a devotee naturally humility. So it's Krishna's mercy. So it depends on what is our heart. Only we know that. Nobody can judge that. So when we think like that, are we thinking, did we put enough endeavor before we say it is Krishna's mercy? Krishna's mercy doesn't come just like that. Karthik is going on. Endeavor, unless there is endeavor, there is no mercy. So we cannot just say it is Krishna's mercy. But the devotee's humility is, good happens, Krishna's mercy. Bad happens, Krishna's mercy. That is different topic. But in general, the blaming game goes on, Prabhuji. That's maybe that's how I do it. That's how I was able to relate, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, can I add a small thing to that? Yeah, it is Krishna's mercy, but we can also say Krishna help. Instead of saying it is Krishna's mercy, I'll just suffer this. It's basically, my understanding is what we are suffering or what we are enjoying is mostly because of our own karmic actions. And so, when we are in predicament or when we are in joy, we can just call out to Krishna and say, Krishna, please help me.
I hope.
No, I think it is beautifully put, Prabhuji. I'm contemplating on it. Definitely,
Nice.
like both of you said, it's more to think about. I think rather than just saying Krishna's mercy, I think you said we have to go one level deeper to see if we are actually seeking Krishna's mercy there. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you for your comments. I think, once again, very beautiful lecture, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for inspiring so many thoughts in us.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, if I may be allowed to add one thing.
Sure, Mataji, I think we'll make this the last question.
Yeah, okay. That is, it is Krishna's mercy that we remember to call him in time of difficulty,
Wow.
I mean, in the case of Ajamala, it is mentioned that when he named the child Narayana, the Lord, Lord's mercy was there. So that, that led to such a perfection of Ajamala's life, even though he was such a. So that is how, difficult it is for us to figure out how Krishna's mercy is working in our life. It's very, very intricate. That Ajamala calling his child Narayana, and later how it impacts that soul's journey. I mean, it's Krishna's mercy that we remember to call him in times of difficulty.
So nice, Mataji. Thank you for that. And
Krishna so much. It was again a very wonderful class, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhyo cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo ananta koti vaishnavi. Lingaraji Prabhu, we are done for the day, Prabhuji.